Jesus redeems, he frees, there's our word, he frees our whole self, our total being, because redemption means freedom. Jesus is the Redeemer, the freer, and he frees all of you. The redemption he offers isn't just a wait until you die and then you get to go to heaven type of redemption. That might have been what you were taught growing up in the church. You might have even walked the aisle or raised your hand or filled out a card or done all three, because someone might have preached and said, who doesn't want to go to hell when you die? Raise your hand. And so somehow we bought like fire insurance or life insurance, or you might have, as I did when I was a little kid, you might have even had the hell literally scared out of you and scared into heaven, and pitched salvation in some sense as if it was a let's wait until we die and then it happens type deal. But when you look at the Bible and you look at the significance of Jesus redeeming you, me, by his blood, you get a completely different picture. Now, there are 7 different places in Scripture where Jesus actually bled, and each one of those 7 areas highlights something that he redeemed for you. I want to skip through 5 of them very quickly, but I want to land on 2 of them. When he was in the Garden of Gethsemane there that evening after he was betrayed, he told the disciples to watch while he went farther to pray, and they were presumably going to pray but kept falling asleep. The scripture tells us in Luke 22:44 that he prayed and sweat drops of blood. He's bleeding, redeeming something as he prays, not my will, but yours. In that moment, I believe that he redeemed our will. At that point, we can choose to make the decisions to live out the destiny God has for us. Again, if you want to learn more and dive deep, there are multiple chapters on it in that book you can download free, the Redemption book. The second area Jesus bled, we'll come back to it, is he was beaten and bruised. The soldiers came and arrested him, and he was beaten, and as he was beaten, he began bruising. The third area that he redeemed was when they took him and he was scourged on his back. They made a whip of cords and they shredded him mercilessly. Isaiah 53 says, by his stripes we're healed. People that study the Bible, pastors and theologians, point to this verse. In fact, you may even have friends that point to this verse and even pray, by his stripes we're healed, when they're praying for physical healing. Jesus bled in his body to heal the physical ailments in our body. It goes farther. After that, the soldiers mocked him and put a crown of just these huge thorns in his head. Not just on his head, but they really buried it into his head. And the crown of thorns remind us of the thorns and thistles that Genesis 3 said was a curse of the fall, that after Adam sinned, that the ground would now work against him, and it wouldn't just be this stewardship and this fun labor, as sometimes we experience. It would be toil, as we often experience. Jesus redeemed our work in that moment. And then they took him to the cross and they placed nails in his hands, freeing, redeeming the work that you do with your hands, nails in his feet, freeing, redeeming the places that you go, where you walk, where you travel. Those places are blessed. And then, here's what's interesting. Even after he died, they pierced his heart. Even after he died. And you say, well, what would be going on after he died? And this is very interesting, because I think that this one actually has to do with emotional health, as well as that second one that we mentioned about being bruised. So let me highlight those 2 very quickly. Look at number 2 on the list. He was beaten and bruised. A bruise is a bursting of blood that happens beneath the skin. Now, though it's visible outside of the body, a bruise is something that happens beneath the skin, beneath the surface. Isaiah 53:5, the verse I just referenced a moment ago, says this: he was wounded for our transgressions, he was bruised for our iniquities. The chastisement for our peace was on him, by his stripes we're healed. So people look to, again, the stripes as physical healing, but notice this right here, because translators and Bible scholars draw out 2 distinctions right here, that wounds are external hurts. If I have a cut or an abrasion on my skin, that's a wound. Sometimes you've had to clean out and then bandage an open wound. Bruises are internal. They're, again, beneath the skin. Now, they're visible for sure, and you know as well as I do that if you keep bumping into a bruise and you don't protect it, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and festers and festers. And so often, the internal hurts that you and I have, that we carry, where we have been, right there, the verse says, bruised for iniquities. It's sin that causes bruises. Whether we do it or, this is often the case, someone else does it to us. What I'm saying is Jesus came to free, to redeem the clutter that sometimes we carry inside because of the things we've done or the things we've experienced that weren't even our fault. He heals those internal hurts. We'll go on. At the end, number 7 on the list, the piercing of his heart. John's the only one that carries this detail, and he says, when they came to Jesus and saw that he was already dead, they did not break his legs, but one of the soldiers pierced his side with a spear, and immediately blood and water came out. Now notice, not just water, but blood. We know the human body is made up of a lot of water, but also blood. Jesus literally shed all of his blood, not just some, all of it. Now, I want you to notice that this detail happened after salvation was already done. Romans 6:23 says the wages of sin is death. Jesus had already died for sin. He had already said, Father, forgive them. He had already declared, it is finished. The veil of the temple in the Holy of Holies was already ripped from top to bottom, showing that somehow God had now made a way for all of us to have access to come into that secret, holy, intimate place with Him. You go, well, what's going on in this one? And I think in this passage right here, it is as simple as Jesus redeems the heart. In other words, 2 of these places of redemption have everything to do with the soul. In fact, look at the screen right there. If you just look at the right, the crown of thorns reverses the toil and the curse of the fall. Now your work is blessed. He sweat blood as he prayed, not my will. Now we are free to choose and do right. His back being scourged, by his stripes you're healed, physical healing. His hands, dominion and authority to do what we're designed to do is restored. Stewardship of creation with the work of our hands and with our feet, everywhere we go is blessed. Look at the left side right there. The bruise, as we'll discover, means guilt and shame are gone. The broken identity that we sometimes carry is no more. We can be who we're really designed to be because the internal scars that we carry, those inside hurts, those can be made whole. And then the heart, even after the payment for sins was made, Jesus continued bleeding, thereby redeeming the depths of the emotions of our soul. In fact, on the outset of his ministry, he actually declared this, that the Spirit of the Lord is on me because he's anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He sent me to catch this, heal the brokenhearted.